Hi everyone. This is Tomaso, Jonas from Boano, Prismontas, and we are going to be with you for 1 hour, showing you, presenting you our project called the Arches project. And first of all,
spoiler alert, it's about the arches.
Yeah, exactly. First of all, let us say thank you to you all for being here, and to the Architecture Foundation for doing this. Basically, it's really cool. I mean, obviously, it feels a bit weird to be connected via Zoom. We had in these last months many meetings, but still feels a bit strange. Yeah, we kind of hope that we will be able to entertain you guys with what we've done, and that you will spend a nice lunchtime basically with us.
Hopefully everyone is safe and family is healthy, and yeah, that as much as possible. I mean,
yeah,
it is not the best situation to be in.
Yeah, it is a difficult time. Okay. It is a difficult time, and what we wanted to do basically was to show this project, because for us meant quite a lot, and we think it's a positive. I mean, it has some positive and possibly inspiring kind of messages. So we thought it was the right thing to kind of show you today. So let's go in the project, and so we can tell you a bit more. So the Arches project is a project that started in 2017, and it was started with a competition run by Minimal Space and Lambeth Council with the GLA, and with the support of Atkins also. So it was this sort of competition to come up with a structure to make use of arches that were not in use. Yeah. So we participated in this competition in 2017, and then we won 1 year later, kind of, because there was like 1 year gap of like dealing with the lease of the arches from Network Rail, and and then in 2019 we actually built this project. We would like to do a step back first and show you 3 small projects that we did before that kind of inferred our mindset and gave us the kind of tools to then build this the Arches project. So in order to do that, I will share our screen and present you very quickly 3 other projects. So with this wonderful tool, which is Zoom, I'll be able to share our screen. So what you see here is our website, and this project in 2016 was called Minima Moralia, and it was about creating a small pod, a small pop-up space that could be used as an artist space. And what we wanted to do in this project was basically make use of all the backyards or any space that was not in use, and transform it by creating a mini space that could be rented out to designers, makers, anyone that desperately needs an affordable space where to craft, where to make things.
That was a very personal project to us, because we were the guys that desperately needed some space for model making and cutting metal, casting concrete, creating dust, and all the kind of things that you don't want to do in your living room. And so yeah, we just built one in the garden of the house where we were renting it. We found it very successful for us because it did exactly the thing that it needed. It just provided the shelter from rain and wind, and space that can be secured at a very low cost, because we just upcycled some steel desks from that were being donated from school, that were being thrown away in trash. So we collected those, stacked them together, and created this pop-up just by using something that we find, something that we can buy from a shop, and I think that from that project you can see that we really like grids and we like modular structures, by using an existing element and repeating it multiple times, we create an inhabitable structure.
Yeah, so basically in this project there was a kind of the first trying of like sorting out the problem of affordable space in London. So so we were working with affordable spaces, spaces for creative, spaces for startups, and creating something that was like in a way temporary, but that could create something new, something good basically. And we wanted to show this because it really started everything kind of, and the artist project is like another sort of project that works on the same topic. Then the art
it also deals with inhabiting the disused space and making use of the whichever small bits of land that you can find in this very densely populated city.
The other project that kind of inferred our mindset for these sort of challenges was like Qbox, which is a project that we built in 2017, so 1 year after. And in this project, it was the first time that we kind of played with plywood, creating a dry joint structure that could be built in 1 day. I mean, at the time we built it in 1 or 2 days maximum.
When you said dry joint, it means that it doesn't have like a fixed, like it's not glued, it's not screwed together, it's just pieces slotted together.
Yeah, so in this case, as you can see, the space that we were kind of building was like created by joining together pieces of plywood that were pre-cut without using any screw or any nail, any nails or any glue. Yeah, so as you can see, all the joints were like carefully designed, prototyped, and then built. And it was very challenging at the time because we didn't know much about this. Yeah, so we just like tried to do it, and we actually had to build it with this insane kind of pressure of like having a space of like five meters wide on a prominent square of the Milan Design Week. Yeah, so it was a good push, and it kind of like taught us how to deliver project in a very tight time frame. Yeah, and also we kind of learned how to work with the team. So everything was assembled by us, yeah, by our team. Yeah, so in the artist project also we had to deal with this kind of problems. Yeah, so showing this project now just shows you that we started, you know, investigating this sort of stuff earlier than the actual project.
One thing that I would mention that in this project in particular, we really understood that if we can model something on a computer screen, there is technology that allows us to produce exactly how it is on the computer. You know, just take it right from the screen into the reality, and that really made us really excited and to want to work more with this kind of.
The last thing that we want to show you before jumping into the artist project was a project that we built in Venice during the Biennale of Architecture in 2018, and it was the unfolding pavilion that we built in the Gino Valle social housing complex. And we want to show you this just because, like, again, we are working with grids and we are working with an extremely tight budget, and with this tight budget, we managed actually to create a space that is quite large and is quite different. So we transform a space, a public space, with just a series of lights.
I think we had the budget of £1,000 for this situation.
Yeah, yeah. So we kind of we've always been used to, you know, work in a way that was kind of clever and you know, adapt to any problem that we might kind of face, and so work out what's the best way to build things ourselves in very short time with a very short budget, which sounds like a dream kind of
Sounds a bit
process.
like the brief of the artist project. Really.
Exactly. Here we are back here. So we wanted to show you this, but now we're gonna go in the artist project. So as I was saying, the arches project started in 2017. The brief of this competition was to find ways to basically create a structure that could be easily mounted, dismounted, and possibly moved in a different arch. So every part had to be modular. Every part had to be easy to build, and then this structure had to kind of to deliver a dry space with a very good thermal comfort, in a way to challenge the service that network rail offers when you rent a space. So nowadays, if you rent any arch, you can buy a basic service of around £12,000, where network rail comes in and install these plastic linings and some light. So Meanwhile Space was questioning that, because most of the time you rent a space, but you don't know how long you are going to stay there for. Therefore, you don't invest money, because the money just stays in the structure. So like if you were like putting in £12,000 and doing all the lining, yeah, and then move out in 6 months, all that capital that went into the space just stays there. So this meant that many arches in London, and we're talking about 3,000 arches, are absolutely empty. They are not in use because they are leaky, they are damp, they are spaces that cannot be kind of used unless you put in lots of money to transform it, to clean it up, to put the lining. Yeah. So Meanwhile Space was actually collaborating with the Lambeth Council to find out what can we do around that sort of budget, around £12,000. What can we come up with, and what can we build in that budget to kind of create a structure that then is a capital invested, but that stays with you because you can move to another arch. I don't know if it's clear. Sorry.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Because you don't want, yeah, like Tomaso was saying, you don't want to spend all that money in setting up your space, and then the landlord can come up with, or they can say either the rent goes up or the rent has to be terminated for whatever reason in a short time, and then you kind of lose it. So we were there to come up with a solution how to create something that can be dismounted without breaking anything, so that it can be reused.
I'm sharing the screen again just to show you what we meant with the condition of the arch. So many arches are like this, where you see a space that is leaky, and often it's full of rubbish or foxes or cats. And so the first step was actually to clean up these spaces and find out what can we build in these spaces that are like vaulted. And the bigger issue that we had at the start was kind of understanding that every arch has a different shape. And obviously we didn't want to kind of create a beautiful bespoke structure that fits in one single arch, but we wanted to create a system. And the key of this project was like seeing it, how we create a system that can be redeployed to occupy arches of every size. So there are arches that are like double stories, arches that are single stories, different width. It was a bit of a mess, right? So we needed to find out how to do that. And after a lot of thinking and sketches, we kind of we kind of came up with this way of creating one module that can approximate the curvature of this arch. So the next step is then defining the size of these pieces and understanding how these pieces can approximate the curvature and infill these arches as much as possible.
I think it's safe to say that we were inspired by Tetris.
Yes,
diagram.
Exactly. And the next step was like how we create then a structure that can support an additional layer of insulation and waterproofing. So because all these arches were kind of free to be used by any possible tenants. They were not kind of locked by, they have to be shops or they have to be anything. So they could be anything. So we needed to create a structure that was maximizing the usage of the internal space. To do that, we kind of created two sets of walls and connected these walls with beams, with this sort of diagram. Yeah. The reason for this is that you don't have any wall in between, you don't have any column in between, and you can create this flexible space, modular space that can be as wide, as deep as you want it. Kind of an inspiration for this was kind of creating these trusses that were made in plywood. They're not made in steel, but they kind of speak a similar language of the railways, or like of the kind of industrial look that you can find in the train, like in the railway tracks. So yes, we are gonna run now a video of the first prototype that we built. And that's kind of the video that shows that maybe I think secured our winning of the project, because Minimal Space and Lambeth Council, they kind of gave us £500 to each selected team to create a sort of model that could prove that you could build a structure. So we took this £500 and we built a one-to-one module at the scale. Sorry for this. And that's the video that shows this first step. Actually, we did this outside London because it was the only way to kind of spend £500 to build a 4 meters or a 4 meter structure. No, more than 7 meter structure. So here we are in we were working with these guys called Cutting Edge, and they cut for us this big structure. They have an amazing space. As you can see, we really like structures. Good structure. After that trusses work, structures can be created by just repeating elements. And that's where we set up the model, the one-to-one scale model. And now the video gets a bit more like funky and interesting, I think. There we go. How we connected these beams by having just 2 sheets of slides connected together with the joints that we developed at the time. Develop this structure alone without having engineers telling us what to do, right? And it was a good challenge, but we kind of liked working in this way because it was very flexible and very easy. And we tested it by like just working on it. Right? Back. That was the first prototype that we presented to Minimal Space, GLA, and the Lambeth Council, and we won. And then, I mean, we were absolutely happy about this because at the time we were set up, but not set up fully. Kind of, we were like trying to get our first project, our first big project, to kind of just do this, you know, like we were always like working, sometimes working part-time for other practices. So we were like kind of waiting to have our first big project. And when we won, we were absolutely happy, yeah. But then we quickly understood that, oh, then now we need to build it, right? Because one thing is presenting obviously one 3D or one mock-up. One thing is actually building 3 arches that could be then used and rented out.
With the budget that was available for this competition, we quickly realized that we will not be able to hire external contractors to do this. We will probably not be able to afford buying like expensive materials and finishes from you know, from the Europe how we were used to doing in other workplaces. You know, you're building an office tower and you just offer glazing from Germany. You know, it arrives, the certified contractor installs it. No, this project was a different kind of scenario. We realized that the only way we can produce these structures is by only if we produce them on site, and they needed a lot of prototyping. They needed a lot of resolving for something that is, you know, that big, like 50 square meters, like a 4 meter whole space. And if we were to do it in the same workshop outside London, you know, we always need to send them drawings. They tell us the price, and we go pick it up, or we send it them. The project budget will have disappeared probably within the first week. So we realized that what we need to do is actually invest some of our money to actually get the tool that will allow us to produce it. So what we did, we set up the manufacturing workshop next door to the arch that we were building, and where we started actually playing with these pieces one to one, and started cutting.
So in a way, we kind of jumped from just being designers, architects, to also become the manufacturers and then the installers. So what we kind of felt is that we just have to make it work. So we had to invest our money to buy the tools and then learn very quickly how to use them, because we needed to do a big session of like prototyping, you know, make sure that everything is fine, the tolerances between pieces is going to be fine. So actually being entrepreneurial and finding different ways to make it work, and not start arguing with the clients that, you know, you need more funding, you need more money, you need a longer time scale, you know, like, was the key, I think, to solve this project. So we kind of like to think that architectural practices, especially young architectural practices nowadays, they have to be flexible, and they have to adapt, because the only way to build things is to actually find ways to build them and find ways to make them. Yeah. So we were not scared. We just like jumped into this and say like, okay, now we buy a CNC, and within a month we were like cutting 24/7, prototyping panels, and make it work. So the concept of the project was this. Let me see if our model is going to break. Oh, it's a heavy one. So this is the first model. So we wanted to create 3 arches by infilling these arch spaces, and have these arches with a translucent wall that could bring some light in the spaces. Because like the worst thing that you want to do is like rent an affordable space where you feel that you're working in a cave in a dark space. Yeah. So you want to feel that you are actually renting a nice space. So by knocking down the brick wall and substituting this brick wall with a polycarbonate wall, we were allowing natural light to come in and fill the spaces. What was at the back of this wall? There was our structure, our series of boxes that you can see here. This is a one-to-one prototype of the structure, and as you can see, this acts like a series of pixels, a series of boxes. They are like joined together, and they are cut on both sides to let the lights coming in. So instead of creating a thick, big wall that is all dark, you create a waffle-like structure that like let light penetrate and fill the space.
We can show another model that we have here. As you can see, we like models, we like making these
Yeah, at the beginning, we were not sure if we could actually cut everything with the CNC. So this model was slightly different because it was based on a different ways of assembling structures, but like the key principle stays that is like this series of boxes where you insert these beams that create a structure onto which you adapt you lay the insulation and the waterproofing. Yeah, and what we liked it was kind of to have the LED lights sitting at the back of the beams to create this sort of a glow. Yeah, so the light was bouncing from one beam to the second beam to create this glow and this interesting light. Yeah, so there was a mix of natural light and artificial light, and we wanted to create with this tight budget an interesting space, a nice space, and also a space that anyone could build.
And a space also that wouldn't feel like an office space, because then it would be completely out of the context as well, especially in the area next to all the mechanics and creative studios. You don't want to walk into like an office cubicle space. You want to have a nice inspirational space that allows your creativity to flow. Very poetic.
We spent a crazy amount of hours prototyping things and building them, but because we were next door, it was actually an easy and smooth process, because we were like making the pieces, going next door, assemble them, check if they were working, yes, no. And I'm going to share the screen again just to show you some photos of the building process that I'm sure you are going to like. So this is when we build the first wall, and because every piece is every piece is like small and meant to be carried easily by one person, you need to know a sequence which is extremely simple. So you need to know some 2 or 3 key passages, but then you can quickly build and assemble a wall like this in 2 hours maybe. So when we did it the first time, we were on site with our team and with Minimal Space also, and we assembled this in a very short time. I think in 2 hours it was all built. And then we thought like, oh, now it's done. But then we had to solve some more kind of challenges. As you can see, it was key to have both walls sitting on a platform that was perfectly straight, level, and the 2 walls facing each other had to be on the same kind of on the same alignment, let's say. Yep. So the beams could be slotted in easily, because there was 0 tolerance between pieces, so everything had to be perfect. But luckily, we like to be, always very, very precise in what we do, and we feel that is also needed for, especially when you do these sort of structures. So the team was like having fun assembling every single component, and also building the part here, the architrave was kind of easy, because like each piece could be fixed onto the next one and create this architrave and connect it in 2 or 3 steps.
I think to summarize, I would say about the structure, that the structure was actually the easiest part of the whole construction of the whole project. Because once you work out one module and one connection, or 1 or 2 connections, then you just repeat it multiple times. And as you can see, our obsession with grids and repetition, yeah, you just carry on as much as as much as space you have.
And the structure works in a simple way, because it uses like a very small amount of pieces. So there are the 2 boxes, yeah, and then there are some connectors that are placed either vertically or horizontally. And these connectors, they work as stitches. So they stitch these columns together to create a strong wall. These walls could also be used with as a storage, you know. So because we didn't know how Space wanted to rent these spaces, so we didn't know if they want to give it to studios or to I don't know. So we wanted to create a flexible wall, a flexible kind of structure. And the key thing is that the entire arch is built by using these 2 only. So there are no screws, there are no nails. They're just like, you know, mallet that helps, you know, slotting pieces in. And we use sometimes clamps just to, you know, help when we were like building the big beams that, you know, they were 7 meters long, so they were quite big. But that's it. And we really like this. We really like that anyone could possibly build this arch without having builders or without calling, you know, people that know how to build, but also kind of need to be paid. So like we wanted to have this as a structure that anyone could build.
So it really goes with the narrative of affordable space, because if you are looking for if you're just a startup or your young company looking for some workplace, you really cannot afford like expensive furniture or do the fit out for £12,000. Maybe if you can save some cost by assembling things yourself as if you're building your IKEA furniture, then that can really help save, lower the cost. So we thought that in general, as a model, that really works. You know, if everyone has the hands-on approach, they can really save a lot of money and put that money towards developing their business rather than their space.
Another key aspect for us was kind of trying to find ways to minimize waste. So the size of each pieces were engineered to fill a plywood sheet to the maximum. So in this way, we didn't have to waste portions of plywoods. We were just like using every single inch of it. And actually, we can show you that, for instance, from cutting the main boxes, yeah, you would have this as a leftover piece, but we were actually using the void of each structure to fit in other pieces that were used in the structure, like smaller connections for furniture pieces. And then we also made use of these boxes to create stools, to create all sorts of other things that could be kind of helpful to the project.
So to demonstrate that, once we remove this piece of material here that allows the light to flow through the wall, then they're left with this piece that we can snap out these elements, and these are designed to be legs of a stool. So you have 4 of these legs, and then from another box you cut out the top and bottom, and you have a stool. Then once you take out both of these pieces, doing a proper show and tell here. So you're left with this, and you could throw this away, but that would be wasteful. But if you stack many of these together and glue them, you have another stool. Just put some caster wheels on the bottom. So we're really trying to make use of every piece of the material, and also disposing of waste is expensive, so it's better for us to make something useful out of it.
We show you now actually what we meant with the efficiency of the pieces, and then I'll show, and then I think we can also take some questions from you guys if you have any. We don't want to bother you with the details of everything. It's going to be a lot of talking that probably is not needed. So yeah, that's the final look of the arches. We had the polycarbonate wall with a structure at the back that was creating this space free from columns, free from any other structure. So it was a flexible space ready to be used in many ways. So now this arch that you see here is actually rented out to a carpenter that is using it and customizing this. And we really like how everyone modifies and personalize these spaces. So our job is just to start this process of creating spaces, and then how everyone customize our structure is completely different in every single case, and that's I think a part of the beauty of this project.
That refers back to the first project that we showed, the one with the black frame steel grid. It's just a grid that everyone is welcome to infill whichever way they find useful.
Yeah, that's a detail of the beam, how it's connected. You see, it's just built by having these two layers of plywoods clipped together with a series of pieces, and then this is the detail, the close-up of the module of the structure, and that's what I was looking for, which is sort of like that is like an axonometric view that shows how we filled up the sheet with pieces to have almost zero waste. So every box contains other pieces that contain other pieces, like a sort of like a Russian doll, like it's a never-ending. So this is another detail of how we connect the facade on the structure, the series of pieces, and this is kind of what we aim, which is showing that this structure can be implemented and used in many other spaces. So in London, there are 3,000 arches that are not in use, and there are car parks. There are, so many other spaces that could be filled with our pixels, with our boxes, and that could be then easily transformed into something that can be rented out or can be used. Yeah.
Can you show the video of how we build
Yes,
it?
we show the video. That's a good point. Sorry. We have the last video before the questions, which is showing how we assemble these projects. Enjoy. There we go. We're back. So I don't know. I think like we can accept some some questions maybe now from the public.
Oh, can I kick off maybe then? Could you? I'm interested in as you're developing a practice, guys. You know, there's been such a strong focus on these projects which are have a temporary installation quality, or and very like the Arches project, certainly a kind of very light touch quality. Do you see that as being? Will that remain the focus of your practice in the way you envisage it developing, or do you see yourselves making buildings that have more substantial qualities alongside this kind of work? Or how do you see it panning out?
I think, if I may answer, I think we see this as a part of, as a valuable part of our development process as architects, but architects with a hands-on approach. So we really like to know what we are talking about, and we really like to have the understanding of how the construction actually happens, what kind of challenges that you have in real life. And actually in the past we were working on much larger projects, you know, on a project that cost 700 million pounds, and they have all kinds of different elements and different challenges. So I think that we already covered kind of the higher level, or the more kind of serious level of architecture. Now we wanted to go back to the basics and really see a bit more of what's on the ground, you know. But we're absolutely aiming to build bigger and you know, more serious projects. It's just these little ones is something that we really have fun doing. And we are currently working on other projects, like we do like new build, like small scale housing and extensions and all that, anything that small practice does. So
will you, on those bigger projects, will your interest in making things yourselves, does that form part of those larger projects too?
We're interested in knowing how things can be done, and if possible, because we have as part of our practice, we have this quite a substantial fabrication lab. So we're happy to do some things in-house. You know, for example, we're doing a house extension that might need a timber structure in the roof, and we could potentially fabricate this ourselves if we see you know, that it could be added value. So yeah, definitely we're more than happy to fabricate some elements of the project that we work on.
I think in every project we always try to push for, you know, having a sort of a space where we can make something, and it's not just designing, producing drawings, but actually it gets to a point where you're actually making something. Can be bespoke furniture, can be a certain structure, can be a sequence of things, but we like making things, and this becoming something that is like part of our company and how our company works. And also because for the client it's easier if the guys designing something are also the guys that are making this, because you can control the quality, you can control process, you can make it easy to build because you are the one that ultimately has to build it, you know. So in this way, we work in a way that is simple, but that, you know, gets to the point and get things built.
I can see there's a question coming from Milena. Milena, I'm going to unmute you, and then so you should be able to speak now if you want to ask them a question.
Thank you. Hello. I find your project very interesting with the integration of the furniture within the structure of the building. And my question is, was this your intention, or it is a result of the lack of space? Because the first project you showed, you work in a really minimal space.
Yeah, I think like trying to integrate different things in the building structure is just a good way to maximize the area that can be used, you know. So our structure, they always try to be built in a way that are simple to build, but also that can be used as storage, or they can be used as a furniture, because integrating structural elements, design elements, furniture elements is something that is playful, you know. So something that we like to do, and gives a value back to the clients, you know, because then they have bigger area that they can use, that they can rent.
I don't think that it's not a starting point. Definitely, it's something that happens like naturally, like organic process. If we see that that structure can also host other uses, like the furniture, for example, we just let it do that.
Thank you. Thank you.
I know that, guys, you're also currently, you started collaborating with Jamie Shorten on the construction of this year's anti-pavilion, the 6 sharks, which I think are going up, you're quite close to where the site is. Could you say a little about how that process is going?
Yeah, so basically we are collaborating on this project, helping Jamie Shorten, that won the Anti-Pavilion 2020, I mean this year. And we are collaborating on this project with an art manufacturer, with a company called Product. So it's like a team that can deliver different skills, and they all concur to actually making these giant sculptures that are gonna populate the canal here in Hoxton. Yeah,
I think we got this job because of our hands-on approach, and because of the tools and the skills that we have. So I think it took one phone call to Jamie, and he said, "This is what we do. Do you need some help?" And, yeah.
Obviously, having the tools and working on this project give you skills that you otherwise you would not develop in a standard practice. Yeah. So the standard way of doing things is like you design, you make a 3D model, then you find someone that actually can build it. But on our side, we want to be the guys that know how to build it, because it's more fun, and it's something that you really feel that you want to do when you're working in a bigger practice. You know, when you just see information passing, but you want to be on site, you want to see how things are made. So in this case, Product has the tools to manufacturing these sharks that are going to be made with a polystyrene foam that is milled with a CNC with a robot arm. Yeah, and then they're going to be coated with a GRP, and then installed on the canal. And we are talking about like sculptures up to 3-4 meters height, so they are quite big.
Just for a reference, we are looking for more sustainable ways of doing that.
Yes. Or we can reuse the polystyrene at some point in a different way. But yeah, it's the best way at the moment to build a structure of this size, obviously, with the budget. I mean, there were other options, like a big sculpture at the Tate has been built recently using cork, you know, but like it's a completely different budget and workflow and process. But in this case, we are very happy and very keen to collaborate as a team in this artistic projects that are not just the standard house or the standard thing that we build.
I think it's fair to say shark construction is quite a specialist skill. We have a question from Sabrina. Sabrina, I'm going to unmute you. Sabrina, you've got the microphone.
Hi. Oh, thank you for this presentation. I really enjoyed also the type of videos and stuff frame and everything that you showed. I was just wondering, like the box for the Milan and the Minima Morali as well seems sort of allotments that can move around. So no matter where they are. And I was wondering, like every time that I look at these self-assembling wooden panels, they look like that it's hard to make them belong to a place. They look like identitarian to the place. And how do you do that? Or like how are you trying to do this?
That's a very interesting point. I like this a lot. I think that obviously we use plywood because it's a bit of a standard in this industry, because we use birch plywood, mainly. Because it's very strong, it's a certified sustainable board that you can just buy, and that the price is not too big. But it's true, how do you make it personal? I think that the way we use plywood is mainly because of the structural properties, but it's not that, I mean, that's much more to the space. So it is, I mean, in this particular case, you see this box built, it's a structure built where we show plywood, but sometimes it's just a structure, and then you have a different cladding, you have a different finishes, you have, you know, something else. So we are using plywood because we are also in Northern Europe, kind of, so using birch belongs to this sort of area. It's not too crazy. Obviously, if we were building in Brazil or somewhere else, we would maybe use local timber or local materials.
We use the materials that we use because that's what we can source and that's what makes sense here. But when you look at birch plywood, it's not about the birch. It's about a sheet material. So as long as it, you know, if we are building something similar in a different part of the world where there's a different tree, or maybe they have sheets of recycled plastic or some other boards of that are even more sustainable, we'll use those. You know, it's about the principle. It's not about the actual material. And about how the structure becomes more personalized is down to the user. So it's for us to create the shell, and then the first whoever is using it is gonna personalize.
No, it seems that in the video that you showed at the beginning, we saw the arch, and then slowly almost built up that with also the insulation, everything. It just looked like that all the space was hidden.
Yeah, but we had to do that. The problem is, I mean, when we were building this, we were like, oh, these bricks are beautiful. You should just like leave them, you know, there. But
then they started leaking on our head, so we were like, no, we definitely have to cover them with something.
I mean, part of this challenge was to create a plugged-in space. So this is like building a room within the vaulted arch, and these arches are leaking so much. There's a constant, you know, dripping of water. So you definitely need to screen that, and you need to put like a sort of lining or something that like directs all this water to the side. So we couldn't show the bricks, but we were, I mean, we kind of thought that it was the good way to do this. I mean, this sort of project.
It was just the most sensible way of responding to the brief, to what the client's requirements. You know, there are 100 ways of doing a project. You know, it can be so different, but we needed to. We were working with some very tight constraints, so that was the best solution at the time.
And also another thing that I didn't mention, I think before, it was that we couldn't drill anything on the bricks. Yeah. So our structure had to be self-standing, you know, like a standing standing structure that is not supported by the brick wall. You know, that's why we had to come up also with the beams and everything else to create an independent structure that is just parked in the vault temporarily.
Okay, Alexandra, I've just unmuted you if you'd like to pitch your question.
Yeah. Hey guys, thanks a lot for the talk. It was super interesting, and I think this the project can definitely also be implemented in several parts of Europe, not just in London, where there are a lot of abandoned spaces underneath the railways, like in Milan, for example. But what I'm thinking actually, what is the in terms of the next step of trying to implement this prototype in several of the arches in London? Because you said there are around 300. So I'm just wondering in terms of the negotiating process with Lambeth Council, and in terms of trying to see what could be the next step in trying to rent them, who could use them, how could they be used, and this kind of more like policies and this process further.
I mean, we definitely developed this thinking that it could be something that could be replicated in many different places. So we thought like, okay, we start from London and then who knows, you know, because this is a structure that can infill any space really. And so we are in conversation with Lambeth and Minimal Space of finding a way to team up and carry on. The main obstacle at the moment is just that it's a long process of getting the lease of these arches confirmed from arch company or TfL or network rate, yeah. So it's more like a sort of a bureaucratic problem more than anything else, I think.
There are spaces available. It's about someone that wants to take over the rent in the first place, and then if they ask us to build the arches, we're more than happy to do it. We actually still have one in storage, awaiting permission to enter a site, also in Brixton. So again, the process is slow because yeah, we need to gain access, and once we have the access, then we can build it in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, and some of these spaces are actually not connected with the power, so there are delays basically from these big companies, you know, Network Rail, Power Network, to make the space possible, really. But I mean, everyone is working towards that. But on our side, if you give us 20 arches, we're gonna build them all.